Today, we are talking with Jason Breyo, who is the president and chairman of the board for 285 Lacrosse. Coach Breyo has a long history in the sport of lacrosse from his days of playing at Canandaigua High School in upstate New York and his time as a D1 player at the University of Delaware, to his time as a coach in Atlanta and his new venture with 285 Lacrosse. Jason coached locally in Atlanta at Lambert High School and Buford High School. His sons Harrison and Grant starred for Buford and went on to play at Siena and UMass respectively. Thanks for being with us today and welcome to the show.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. So it's kind of, it's kind of nice talking to an old Section 5 guy with, even though you're from Fairport.
Yeah, I mean, what's so funny is I was just texting with Patrick Joyce yesterday, actually, after our game. And, I was like, dude, I appreciate everything you do for the sport, even though you're a Brave. And so I was kind of giving him a hard time about being from Canandaigua and whatnot. He started talking about Clausen's. Do you know about Clausen's?
No, I don't. Fill me in.
It's a little like convenience store, and it was right down at the bottom of the hill from Fairport High School. And so they would have breakfast pizzas and like you go get slices after school, and you're late to school because you're getting a breakfast pizza from Clausen's. But he was like talking about, oh, I could really go for a slice from Clausen's right now. So it's kind of cool to be able to talk to you guys and still share some stories. I don't know, did you know Coach Santini?
I knew of him, yes. I didn't know him personally.
Yeah, unfortunately, unfortunately, he just passed away yesterday. So it was a big loss for our community. It was those that know, was a football coach and just a great leader of young men and a great educator. So it was kind of hard to hear that news, but I know he's been sick for a little bit, and he's kind of in a lot better place now. So so we'll get started. So since we're talking about upstate New York, what was it like growing up and playing lacrosse at Canandaigua?
Cold.
Yeah, sure was.
Now, it's funny, like where we grew up, where we're in Western New York, like lacrosse is just kind of a fabric of the culture. And, I'm from a town of 10,000 people on a good day. And, you just grew up middle class town. You grew up playing sports. I played football, basketball, and lacrosse. And until 7th grade, I did actually played basketball, hockey, and wrestled.
Yeah, that's great.
And then, just always playing sports. And it's really amazing experience. I mean, we're from a one high school town. And, the same guys, I still play in Lake Placid with guys
Oh,
that
that's
I
great.
went from kindergarten through 12th grade with together. And we just all play. It was really cool. It was a great place to grow up. And I'm always connected to it. One of the reasons, for our event we're doing it, shoot out for soldiers, is one of our charities. The sole reason is they do an event in Canandaigua. So
Yeah.
they do their upstate New York event in Canandaigua every year. It's tremendously successful, and they're invested in Canandaigua. So when we started talking about this a couple of years ago, it was the first charity we wanted to partner with. But Canandaigua was great. It's absolutely wonderful. It's a little. I think I was really fortunate. I have a great group of friends. There's 8 of us. We still talk weekly, daily, and weekly texts. We catch up when we can. But it was really cool. And playing lacrosse in Canandaigua for John Johnson and Ed Mulhern was great. I mean, I didn't realize it at the time what good coaches they were, or great coaches they were. I'm very close to Johnny Johnson still. Talk to him a lot especially when I got back into coaching. Like, I leaned on him a lot. You always have your coaching mentors, and leaned on him a lot. But he's a great guy. I can call him when I go home. I'll go sit down with him, and we'll go talk strategy, and then we'll get a whiteboard out in his living room on the lake. And his wife's glad that I come over because she's retired and she wants him to do something else. So it works out pretty good. But it was a great experience, and we're just very fortunate to have a really great athletic program at Canandaigua, and we just surrounded by great coaching and great people. It bred a lot of really good lacrosse players.
So. Yeah, and it's when I coached at Piedmont, I had the opportunity to have St. John Fisher come down, and I had the trifecta of like Section 5 lacrosse with Coach Johnson and Coach Garrett and Coach Rice. And it was really awesome. And like you said, like I still talk to Coach Torelli, weekly, monthly, whatever, whenever we get a chance to text back and forth, and always checking in on each other and see how everybody's doing. And you're right, the communities that we grew up in are really close knit and tight. And you talked about playing other sports. Obviously, you played a ton. How important is that in your development of lacrosse, or for other guys or kids to play multiple sports?
I think playing multiple sports is crucial and was crucial in my personal history. And I think it's a travesty that kids can't really do that anymore. I mean,
Yeah,
the toughness I got from football. I mean, I honestly, we had a really good football, but I didn't really like football that much. I mean, I played it. It was what we did. There was no way I wouldn't have played, but football games are the best Monday through Friday in football, especially in Western New York in the days where you hit every day. That was horrible. I mean, that
yeah,
was just
terrible.
awful. That was more
Yeah,
like enduring it. You didn't do it. And then, but my best sport was actually basketball. Um, I neglected to get to 6'7" or 6'8" like I thought I was gonna, which I
right,
needed
right,
to for my position. But my best sport was actually basketball. And one of the things I think is really hard about getting kids in lacrosse right now or to play lacrosse is no one plays basketball anymore because you can't. If you where we
right,
live right now, basketball goes from October to March.
right,
And you have to play all year round. So it was really easy for me. Like we didn't really have organized lacrosse back then to like 7th or 8th grade.
right.
But I've been playing basketball for like 5 years. It's the same game, really,
Yeah,
just with a ball and stick. So it's like playing basketball just teaches you lacrosse. Like when a lot of lacrosse right now is a 2-on-2 game. That's just basketball. But
absolutely.
it
Yeah,
amazes me. Like I coach a Thunder team now, and none of these kids know any of those principles because they've never played basketball.
yeah, yeah.
You know,
It's so helpful. And I know Glenn, played hockey and baseball
Yep.
and all that, and growing up playing multiple sports, it's just crazy to see how, whether it's the club scene or whatever, and you're always listening to coaches saying, "I'm going to take a multiple sport guy over anybody," but it's like not everybody's catching on and understanding. And sometimes it's good to put a stick down, right? Or, hang up the skates and go do something else or whatever. So, yeah, I agree. It needs a change. I don't think it will. There's a lot of money in travel sports, so it's hard to change what's going on right now.
but I also
Well,
think
I think like, oh, go ahead. Go ahead,
no,
Jason.
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I think these coaches, when they say they want multi-sport athletes, they're also kind of talking out of their mouth, both sides of their mouth a little bit.
I
Because if a
agree.
kid doesn't show up at a summer thing, or if he's in football shape, then like my son Grant was a pretty good linebacker at Buford, and he had to carry 10 to 15 extra pounds every year for football, and he'd have to bulk up in the summer, and he just wasn't as good a lacrosse player. They don't take that into consideration.
Right.
Like he couldn't play much in the summer, and he would do practice all. We'd pick him up at a 7-on-7 on Friday and go to the airport and get on a plane and go to a lacrosse tournament. And it was really hard. And so they all say they want multi-sport athletes, yet they have these events every single week, and the
Yeah.
coaches are always at them. And if a kid's not at them, they don't. It's almost like they're penalized a little bit.
Yeah.
You
Exactly.
know.
That's pretty much what I was going to say. Same kind of concept. I think one in New Jersey, like in high school sports, there was a set start and stop of the season, and I don't think Georgia, like there's too much overlap in the high school seasons. It's like we've got kids that are still playing basketball coming out late to lacrosse season or whatever. So it makes it a little more difficult when they're trying too much on their plate at once. But yeah, the whole travel circuit has changed everything as far as time management for kids.
Yeah, and the other thing, like I had two really different experiences coaching at Georgia. Lambert, both were great. They were just different. Lambert was awesome. We built a youth program. We built I was fortunate to be coaching there with Rich Wayman and
Yep.
Rick Lewis and a bunch of other guys, and we built a really nice program. And always coached the JV and then did the defense on varsity and stuff, and it was great. Um, but it was kind of funny. Like each sport there was kind of in their own silo. You know, everyone had different booster clubs and that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But then I go to Buford, and Dexter Wood was the athletic director at the time. He's one of the most amazing men I've ever met in my life. And this guy's a 1972 graduate of Alabama, played football for Bear Bryant. And we were at the coaches meeting the 3 years I was there in August. He would say, we had this amount of 3-sport athletes last year, this amount of 2-sport athletes last year, and this amount of single sport athletes. We need this 2 and 3 higher, and you guys need to work together better. You know, so he would actually make sure the sports were connected, and it was still hard though. I mean, Buford football's year round,
Yeah.
you know, so it's but it's still hard, but you know, it's just different that, you know, at least they're trying to get multi-sport athletes there, you know.
Yeah.
So, but I think it's a travesty that kids can't do that. I think lacrosse in Georgia starts too early.
Yeah.
You know, no one listens to me when I bring that up. They think I'm nutty or something, because, you know, we're starting practice like January 20th or something, or pre-conditioning,
Right.
and then February, and we're playing. You know, no one wants to play lacrosse in February. It's freezing.
No.
You know?
No one wants to sit in the stands in February.
Oh
It's too
God, no.
cold.
Yeah, I mean, start it in March, you know, and play it when it's warm and more people want to play, and, you know, let kids play their winter sport. But when I bring these
Yeah.
up to people, no one really wants to do anything about it, you know?
Yeah. As a teacher, I was all for like a balanced schedule, like we had, you know, in upstate New York, and I'm sure New Jersey did the same when you went to school, Glenn. But like, you know, start after Labor Day, get done, even if it's like, you know, mid-June. That way your sports for sure are spread out. We never, like, obviously if you were in the state playoffs, yeah, that, like, yeah, you were, you know, you were going to miss a week or two of the season, and that was understandable, and you were playing for a state championship. But other than that, like, we start, you know, when there's still, you know, I think 5 or 6 region games left in basketball. So, you know, there's no way that you're going to be able to. I mean, you could do it obviously, and you're gonna let those kids come out, but you know, kids get tired and they need you know, for me to have 2 weeks break was perfect, and then I'm like, all right, I'm ready to get back at it. So
Mhm.
yeah, I'm a fall for a balanced schedule. So
I was talking to Rich Wayman Sunday afternoon. I was up at Lambert. I had to go see a middle school game my son was coaching, and he was like, "Well, you know," I asked him about his son Brooks, who's their, you know, great player for them.
yeah,
And, you know, Brooks is also a great basketball player. And, you know, he was like, well, they lost last night in the playoffs, but now we get them for lacrosse. So,
yeah,
like, so now Brooks is actually going to be able to play in this game against Milton Saturday morning in Bobby Dodd
that's great.
Stadium. And, you know, but if they were still playing in basketball, they wouldn't, because of the overlap. It's just
Right,
ridiculous.
right.
You know? One thing about where we grew up, though, Pete, I think they kind of had to do that, because I know, at least in my school, we were a lot smaller than you guys, if you fancy people at Fairport. We wouldn't have had people to fill the teams if they overlapped. You know,
Yeah,
we wouldn't have had that.
yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah, I mean, it kind of helps too. Like, I think some of our better lacrosse players were actually some soccer players. So having soccer in the fall was really great. I know when I first started at Lassiter, Pace, um, I think either it just changed or was in the process of changing, you know, from soccer in the fall back soccer in the spring. And they had a ton of kids that were really, really good, that were
Yeah.
soccer players that could play. But once they went GHSA in soccer, they were like, we can't do it anymore. So they went and played soccer. And so they kind of lost, you know, athletes. So you know, I know it's never going to happen, but you know, some of the soccer players that we had, I mean, I know like Danny McCormick, it was a midfielder, was just so good. And you know, it's tough to see, like, you know, you could really use some of those kids, but
Soccer in the spring here is really weird.
yeah,
I mean,
it is really
you know,
weird. It is
not only that, you're competing for athletes, you're also competing for fields.
spot. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
Just don't have enough of that.
Exactly.
right? It's just weird. It's only one of 5 states, I think, that does that.
I think you're right. I think you're right.
Yeah.
I think I looked at it up, and there was like 6 states, 5 states that actually play soccer in the spring. So
Yep.
it's pretty crazy. Um, so I was gonna take this question, but how was your time playing at Delaware, especially for Coach Schillinglaw, and how did it prepare for you for life after college?
Delaware was a great experience. I got to be honest, though, we weren't exactly in the glory years of the program when I was there.
Yeah, yeah,
We weren't very good. We had a lot of good players. My freshman year, we were really good. Actually, our record was only 8-8, but we played like 10 top 20 teams, but that was probably the best team I played on. Coach Schillinglaw and I are really, we had dinner a few months ago. I was down in Naples, Florida in the fall for a tournament. He's down there in Naples now, retiring, but the
yeah.
man absolutely worked tirelessly for the program. But, at the time, we weren't really a well-supported program. We were kind of an
Mhm.
afterthought that it was non-scholarship, but the university is great though. I mean, I went there because of the university, and it was great. And great friends from there. I mean, playing in college, everyone thinks it is awesome and it's great. And my kids just experienced this, but there's some days it's not so much fun.
Mhm.
Right.
You're in the cold. I remember my first practice at Delaware. Fall ball was kind of easy. We practiced like 4 days a week and lifted and ran. I'm like, I got this. Basically high
Yeah.
school. Our first day in the spring of 1989, we got out. We didn't have any turf, so we were in the grass. It was muddy. We're wearing sweatpants. Practice was 4 hours. I never forget that. I'm like, what? Isn't there like a child labor law or something against this? And that was before the 20-hour work week. And I remember we went 28 days in a row in practice. But doing hard things really prepares you for life. And also, when you're going through hard things with those guys, like we have a text chain of the 1992 Blue Hens. My team all the time. We've been texting. They all saw the article on our game a couple days ago. So
Uh-huh.
we've been texting a lot. But it was a great experience. I mean, I honestly, my career, I could have done better. I could have done a lot better. Um, I went from a really small town in a controlled environment to a school of 20,000 people, and can't say that I knew what to do.
Yeah.
And so I wish I've actually gone back to talk to the team a couple times, and not in like 5 or 6 years, just about kind of maximizing your time there and understand kind of why you're there. And my career didn't end up as good as it should have. I played a lot, even as a freshman. I started after every game after my freshman year, but I just could have done better, because I didn't know how to focus
Yeah.
in a college environment. I was easily distracted. Put it this way. I
Yeah.
mean, the
I,
girls,
I,
the women at the University of Delaware were a lot better looking than the ones in Canada. Gotta be honest.
I can
But I
imagine.
love it.
So that's something that kids don't understand even today, probably, right? Like how hard it is.
Yeah.
I've coached at Division III, and we were a new program, and I had kids be like, come in to me and be like, Coach, I didn't know it was going to be like this. Like they didn't understand the commitment, and it blew my mind sometimes of like when I'm recruiting, I'm talking to them, they're going to be they're like, oh, I'm thinking of like Piedmont or Georgia, and I'm like, well, you're not coming to Piedmont if that's like your
Go
if
to
that's
Georgia.
your like apples to apples, which is apples to oranges. But you
Yeah.
know I mean, I think kids don't understand that our girls are about to experience that, and it's I try to prepare mine. I don't know, Glenn probably does the same, but like you better be ready to go. It's like full time. I know you say you got the hours, but you're still full time.
Yeah. My son Grant, who just graduated from UMass last year, had a great experience, but all these people would come up to him, man, it must be so fun to play there and play at that level. And he's like, what?
Yeah,
It's it's cold, there's snow, and UMass is a great program, and the toughness they breed is great, and he loves it. But
yeah.
they have an indoor field, but they don't use it. They have an indoor covered turf field. They don't use it. They're out in sweatpants if it's 5 degrees out. They're out there working out, and everyone thinks of UMass the old days. They call it ZooMass. Well, they were only
Mhm.
allowed to go out one day a week.
Yeah,
So everyone thinks they're having this great time. Well, he loved it and everything, but they're inside. They're not out on Thursday and Friday nights. They're working hard. They're
yeah,
6 to 8 hours a day of lacrosse, and he loved it. But there's a lot of bad moments, a lot of dark times, and you hit a wall, and you're working really hard, and things aren't going your way, and the coaches don't. Coaches are there to win games, and if you're not helping them win games, I mean, they'll cut you. People think just because your kid gets recruited to college. That's just, as I tell this to my Thunder kids now and the parents, and they look at me, I think like I'm nuts, because I'm like, if you get recruited here, that means you're good enough to get the opportunity to play.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean you're good enough to play. Right. Because when you get there, the work ethic has to continue. Like I saw from both my sons' careers, guys who came in their freshman year who were decent, but never worked hard and got better and never played. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's 50 plus guys on these teams. I mean, Saturday, Notre Dame carries 60 people.
Right.
There going to be 60 kids on the sideline. And some of them are like 23 and 24 and 25 now, which is insane.
Yeah.
And you got a kid who's an 18-year-old and their parents are upset he's not playing. I'm like, I think he needs to, he'll get his time, but there's only 10 guys on the field.
Right.
I know we're inventing new versions of the sport left and right with sixes, but there's only 10 guys on the field and the one I like.
Yeah.
Yeah,
for sure. For sure.
Yep.
All right, Jason. So, you started in upstate New York, you moved on to Delaware. How did you get involved in lacrosse in Atlanta?
Well, funny story. So my uncle who is basically my big brother, moved to Atlanta in 1978. He's my mom's youngest brother, and I'm the oldest of the next generation. So we're only about 15 years apart. So I first came to Atlanta in 1982 to visit him, and then I came in high school, and then I came in college. And in college, I had this epiphany. I was here in the summer. I'm like, I kind of like it here. It's nice. But the real thing is, I kind of like the way these girls look and talk. So the week after I graduated Delaware, I packed my Dodge Shadow with my stereo, my lamp, and my lacrosse equipment and the clothes I had and drove here. I lived with him for a couple weeks, and my cousin Connor, who's now 32, was born, and then I got kicked out of the house because they had a newborn, and I had to find an apartment. But I've lived here ever since. And then I met my wife a year later. We got, and I married into a very Southern girl in a very Southern family. And, the first thing she made me the day before we got married, and we got married on July 1st, 1995, which amazingly is 30 years.
Wow.
Coming up. But the day before we got married, yeah, she's a saint. The day before we got married, she sat me down. She came and talked to me. She goes, "We got to talk." And I'm sitting here like, "Oh man, I'm getting dumped." I almost pulled this off because my wife is way above my league. I said, "I'm getting dumped," and she goes, "I just need to promise me you're never going to move me up north." And I said, "Done." So that was easy. So to get closer to your question, so when we had kids, and Harrison was born in 1999, and Grant was born in 2001. I'm thinking like, God, lacrosse doesn't exist here. What am I going to do with my boys? Right? Are we going to have to move to Maryland, or what are we going to have to do? Because literally that's how important lacrosse is to me. And
Sure.
Like my kids have to play. So about 2005-ish, when Harrison was like 6, he's got to start playing. I ran into Joey Lacerdo and Bobby Lacerdo and Jason Alberici, who were doing double sticks, and they started doing clinics and started getting into it that way. But as you have your kids, you want your kids to have the same experience with lacrosse, because it's what we do. So like everybody else here who's like one of us who moved here and coaches, we start coaching in youth leagues. We start youth leagues. We start, the teams and stuff. So that's how it happened. And then think about 2007, 2008, I met Rick Lewis and Rich Wayman, and we started the South Forsyth Middle School program that then fed Lambert a couple of years later, and we just end up coaching. Yep. And it's funny, I explained that a lot of people around the country don't understand the whole community coach thing. And it takes a massive amount of time. When I was at Lambert, it was great. We had like 10 coaches that lived in the area. If you couldn't meet, we do have jobs, even though it doesn't seem like I do lately because I'm putting so much stuff into 285 lacrosse, so it's a lot of fun. But, we, like my son and I, Grant, were talking about this the other day. He's like, how could you coach and work? I'm like, well, here's the deal, Grant. One, who else was going to coach you guys? Yep. And two, I'm either going to be the dad. I'm either going to be on the sideline frustrated that I'm coaching whatever and having a hard time pulling it off, or I'm going to be in the stands frustrated that my kids don't have a coach.
Yeah.
So, I mean, how many guys? I mean, I can name 30, 40 guys like us who've done that. Like, I think it's because the whole, the guys like yourself who are teachers and lacrosse coaches actually know lacrosse. You can count on one hand still.
Sure. Yeah.
Busick and Tony and you and a few others, but so to have a successful lacrosse program or for kids to play with and friends in the game, you got to coach and you got to start recruiting. I coach youth football in Sharon Springs Park in Forsyth County, and we just started the youth league. We just recruited from football coaches and everybody. We had the whole thing, so it was same field, same thing, same everything. So basically it was out of success, out of necessity.
Yeah.
So,
that's great. Love it.
But my wife told me I can't coach anymore, so that's why we're doing other stuff like creating events.
Well,
you moved into the admin side.
Does she realize that you're spending just as much time, if not more?
No, she realizes I'm kind of a nut job when I'm in lacrosse season, and I probably shouldn't be doing it. I'm good with clinics and stuff like that, but I want to win so bad if I'm coaching. It's just, she said it wasn't healthy.
I understand.
But like coaching is so hard.
I can agree with that.
Coaching is so hard now, though. I mean, because you can't please anybody. If you do it, I don't know. Like this, I don't know how college coaches in the NIL area do it. I know you work hard, you get better, you work on individual skills, you get better, you get to better as an individually, you get better as a team, and you win. And you work hard, dude. You got to earn that. You got to compete for it, right? I don't understand this environment now. And, when I talk to my Thunder team, the kids I coach at Thunder actually are great, but it's kind of perfect. It's like 2 practices a week for a couple months and, 4 weekends. But, I talk to them about the amount of stick work they're doing and stuff, and it just kind of goes over their head. I'm like, guys, you got to be doing this every day. Yeah. When you're paying all this money to be here because you want to go to college, you better be doing 20 to 30 minutes of stick work a day, or you're just wasting your parents' money. I actually said that one time in front of the parents and the kids. I said, if your kid isn't spending 20 minutes a day on a stick work, you're wasting your money. I don't think the Thunder guys like that, but it just kind of is. And it's so like coaching's just hard now because you got to deal with social media, you got to deal with parents. And my wife's an assistant middle school principal, so the stuff. I mean,
she is a saint. She is a saint.
Oh yeah, and she loves it. She's great at it too. She is great at it. So it's it's something. But I don't know.
So why did you start 285 Lacrosse and the Atlanta Lacrosse Invitational?
Honestly, because for one game, it started with UMass last year in Army. For one game, I didn't want to get on a plane and go to Amherst, Massachusetts. So,
there you go.
That's
a great
exactly
reason.
how it started. So, the first time we thought about UMass was in 2013 when North Carolina played UMass up at Kennesaw, and UMass beat them. They were actually number 1 that year. They had Will Manny on the team and a lot of other guys, and it was just great to see that team play. And so when I was talking to Coach Cannella through Grant's recruitment and he played there, he would talk about how great it was coming to Atlanta. And then my thinking was, that opened our eyes to that program in lacrosse. And like my son was like that day, both my sons thought it was great and I thought it was great. And, it was a really fun day. Jim Busick put that one on. And I think they had Notre Dame playing Denver or something too. Forget. But so that day just.
Oh yeah. Was that at McEachern? Was that at McEachern High School?
No, they had Duke and Bucknell at McEachern like the year before.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, but think about all these kids then who came, saw those games, and are like, man, this is awesome. I want to do this, right? So when Grant, because UMass had such a great experience then, when Grant went there, I mentioned it to Coach Cannella just in passing, said, hey, you want to come to Atlanta again? And it took a couple of years. We had, when he was there to get it all figured out, but it ended up working out and we were able to get a game here. And solely, I just wanted to, honestly, Grant, my son, being 1,000 miles away from where he grew up in school. He never got to play in front of family and friends and stuff. So we wanted to do that. But the whole thing was, we did that last year, and it was 5 years, I think, since the last college game, which was Yale, Michigan. So there's a whole generation of kids that hadn't seen lacrosse at that level. They don't know what it looks like. Like, how do you aspire to do something if you haven't seen it?
Right.
You haven't seen what awesome athletes these guys are and how hard they work and all this other stuff. So that's the real goal, is to put on a real professional level event and have people see our sport in the best light they can, and just kind of have kids to want to follow in these footsteps. So like this week with the Maryland Notre Dame game, there's 3 Georgia kids in that game. Braden Erksa, from Maryland, who's basically an All-American. And then we got Fisher Finley, who's a great midfielder. I think he's running second line now, but he could be first everywhere else, for Notre Dame. He's 6'5" and can do it all. And then there's another kid that a lot of people don't know about. He's a defenseman named Ridge Johnson in Notre Dame. He's a 5th-year senior. He's from Augusta. Think about that.
Yeah.
Ridge used to play on my Gwinnett Thunder club team and drive 2.5 hours from Augusta to practice.
That's awesome.
So basically, all our kids around here, it's great. Culturally, it's great. Go to Georgia, have a good time. Go to Tech, go to Alabama, go to Clemson. But, these kids, and this doesn't make sense to everybody, but if these kids don't see somebody else like them in their area be successful at this level, how are they going to know what to aspire to? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the real thing is just to keep kids, I think the greatest thing that any of us can do is put sticks in kids' hands, and and just keep doing that, because that's how I started. My neighbors gave me a stick, and just get all these kids to come see it. And this environment this week is going to be amazing. I mean, Georgia Tech's been a fabulous partner, and this stadium is going to be awesome. I'll send you some pictures of it. Again, I mean, we got the lines done 2 days ago, and we've just been fine tuning it. It's just beautiful.
That's great.
We're going to present. We thought about, last year at Silverbacks Park was a really cool event. It was a really good place. It was a fun place to play. It's, it's a little gritty, which I kind of like. But the parking we couldn't do that parking again. But with this game, it needed a bigger venue, and to just like, we'll have this game. We're going to be on the level at an ACC stadium that does things really well. And, we're kind of, I said in an interview the other day, it's a Southern football cathedral, right? So finally our sport, literally the first practice I ever coached in like 2006 with Rick Lewis and Rich Wayman at South Forsyth, we had to throw a goal over a baseball outfield and climb like a 12-foot fence to get on there to practice, right? Because we couldn't get fields. We're just going to go practice. If the police come, the police come.
Yeah.
But here we are 20 years later, and now we're allowed to play at Bobby Dodd. Now that's really cool, right? So we're doing everything we can to put on this top-notch event, so people want to see this and say lacrosse is awesome, and let's do it again, and inspire a lot of younger kids to play, because all these kids, like a lot of kids, not everybody can play. This about lacrosse, not everybody can play football these days because it's just your genetics. Not everybody. I was considered a good basketball player where I was, but my size right now, I played power forward. My size right now is a guard.
Right.
And it's just not business. So lacrosse, if you're a great athlete, you can be 5'5" or 6'5", not even a good athlete, and you can play. And it opens up opportunities to go to great schools. It opens up opportunities to compete. And I always talk about kids who, a lot of kids here who are really good have should I go to Georgia, Clemson, or whatever? I have fun and, do the fraternity thing or whatever. Yeah, that's a lot of fun, but you're going to spend 4 or 5 years watching other people compete when you could be competing yourself and making something happen and learning all the benefits of that and working hard and making something happen. I think that, how do these kids know to do that unless they see somebody like them doing that? So that was a really long answer to your question, but
no, it was perfect. It's awesome.
Yeah. So that's the whole hope,
Yeah. So Glenn always usually ends these things with a nice question about lacrosse and the rules. So go ahead, Glenn.
Yeah.
Well, don't
So
get me
so
started
one
on
of
the
our staple
officials.
questions, yeah, is there a specific rule or rules that you would like to see changed to make the game better?
I'm a defenseman. I don't think there should ever be a hold ever. I think a hold's just BS. But no, here's one thing though that happened in the past couple of weeks that I think's a crime against lacrosse, and you start to see people doing this. Coaches calling stick checks, but lately coaches calling, it's happened in college a couple times. It happened 3 weeks ago against my school against Utah, where the Utah coach called a stick check on the faceoff guy with 2.5 minutes left. And of course, the Blue Hens got a 3-minute non-releasable because every single face-off stick is illegal in the fourth quarter after taking 20, 25 face-offs.
Yeah.
So people are now calling stick checks on face-off guys. Calling a stick check, I'm old school. I mean, if you were a coach and you called in the 80s where we grew up, Pete, if you called the stick check on somebody, you'd get hit
Yeah.
by the other coach.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I just think that's an etiquette thing. But I think calling a stick check on a Fogo it shouldn't be allowed to happen because they're all illegal. And if you go back to that Utah Delaware game a couple weeks ago, before he called it, they had their face-off guy go get a new stick because they knew it was illegal. So if Delaware called it back on him, he would have a good stick. So I just think that's atrocious.
I cannot believe that's your answer because we just played in a game last night. And you said something about officials. And I'm just gonna tell you this right now. I've never had an official grab a face-off stick. Official grabs a face-off stick. I'm like, sir,
Oh
that's a
my
face-off
God.
stick. He said, no, he said we can check it. We can even check goalie sticks, right? Then, give it to the other team. I'll give it to the other team. The other face-off kid goes and grabs a different stick and gives it to him. And sure enough, okay, I'm gonna tell you, this is why I was talking to Patrick Joyce last night. I'm just gonna tell you now that you came up with that story about the face-off stick. We get an illegal stick. Okay. We were playing an extremely good team, extremely well coached. And we were down in the end of the first quarter. We had just gotten the penalty. We were holding the ball to get the ball back. We get the penalty. They get the ball. Uh, it was. I've never ever heard of a referee taking a face-off stick and doing a stick check with that. Then they do another stick check and take his face-off stick. Well, there's a certain shafts for face-off guys with that I guess are kind of beveled out or whatever. I don't know, and obviously didn't know the rule. Called it illegal, but it's a legal stick. Called it illegal. Their coaches were able to provide other sticks that had the same. Then they waved off the flag.
Yeah, well, that's just madness. I'm getting all
Yeah,
irritated just hearing about that. That just
I'm telling you,
that,
it is, and you're talking about getting harder to coach. And I know we're short referees, and I appreciate every referee that steps forward, but man, it's tough. It's
the
hard.
problem with
It's hard
lacrosse.
to
Yeah, it's lacrosse and fishing though. They could make it a little simpler. There's so many little ticky, stupid rules
agree.
that just you shouldn't be. I mean, and the new guys don't have the experience to know that they shouldn't call that. Like there's so many
Right.
rules that a ref's just not going to call. You know, like
Yeah.
there's so many examples of that, and I'm not thinking of them right now. But
Yeah.
it's just not. Like Georgia officials will talk about mouthpieces, right?
Yep.
Got to have the mouthpiece in. They enforce it. They'll call a penalty. Half the college players don't even wear them because they don't.
Right.
It's just not something that comes up in a college game. It just
Yep.
doesn't happen. They just don't. They're worried about the real stuff. You know what I mean?
Yep. Yep.
So
Yeah.
just dumb stuff like that we focus on too much here.
Yeah. Yeah. Glenn was just saying that he was watching a game after his daughter's game while we were talking before we started, and he was just saying, like, I just don't understand. It's funny about the girls' game and the women's game and the men's game and how it's so different. And then when you're used to one and then you go to another, you're like, wait a second, what? So I've had like, I was fortunate enough, obviously, to be a coach, so I know the men's side. And then when my daughter started playing, I'm like, okay, like I see a little bit of more of like, skill work with the women's game just because of, their pockets and whatnot. And, they've changed that a lot over the years where we're not blowing whistles every 30 seconds and, adapted it to make it way more interesting, in my opinion. And, letting the girls be athletes, which I think is pretty cool to watch that.
Well, women's, I never had daughters, so I never had to endure girls lacrosse. But I think one thing that happened this year, if the box world
Yeah.
championships this year, they had the women playing the same game as the men. It was awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, what other
Yeah.
sport that men and women play together like basketball? Are there two completely
None.
different sports?
None.
Why don't they just play the same sport? Everybody would like to see it. I don't
Yeah.
know. I remember when I was at Buford, Dexter Wood, who, as I said, he's from Alabama. He understood men's a little bit, and he actually, I was over after our game. There was a women's game or something, and I went over and talked to him. He goes, "Do you know anything can you tell me about women's lacrosse? What's going on here?" I'm like, "I don't know. I honestly don't
Yeah.
know."
Yeah. Well, when we
So
were when we were there, I mean, women's lacrosse wasn't very big. I know it wasn't at Fairport. It was starting to get big and whatnot. But now, I mean, I think 2 years ago, Fairport won the state championship in women's lacrosse, and so I mean, you didn't see it as much. That's for
it didn't
sure.
even exist in Western New York at my age because I'm a little older than you. It was big in Philly and
Yeah.
areas like that. But so Canandaigua did not get, I think, we did not get women's girls lacrosse until the late 90s, like 1997 or 1998, because
Yeah.
Molly Foster, Coach Mike Foster, our
Yeah.
athletic director and football coach, his daughter
Yeah.
Molly wanted to play lacrosse, and she was playing with the boys, middle school. And Molly
That's
now
great.
lives in Greenville, South Carolina. She's the athletic director at a private Christian school, and she coaches women's lacrosse, and she's awesome.
That's
But
awesome.
she got decked in a boys' game and knocked out in a boys' game.
Oh, yeah.
We had a girls' program the next year. So that's how it started.
That's awesome. That's
Yeah.
great. Well, listen, man, I appreciate you coming on, and I know this event's coming up in a couple days, and appreciate you taking the time out to talk with us. My son and I are going to be there, and we're excited to check it out, and to grab a game like Maryland Notre Dame. I mean, that's awesome. I think it's gonna, you know, stand out for Georgia, help Georgia. You talking about inspiring people that don't see the game as much. I mean, it's hard to, bring a two-time national champs, and obviously a perennial powerhouse in Maryland down and not have kids get inspired. So I'm really
Yeah.
excited to check it out, and I appreciate you speaking with us.
Well, I'll be running around my head cut off on Saturday, but I hope I see you guys. And I know it's late notice. I should have told you this, but there's practices tomorrow. If you want to come down and see Drexel, Notre Dame, and Maryland practice, just give me a call. We'll make it happen.
All right, man. I appreciate that.
Yeah, it'll be
All right,
really cool. I
Jason.
know you got to. I know you got to teach and you got your kids, but come on, no one does anything on Friday in
Yeah.
high school. Come on.
I hear you. I hear you. I need you to be my principal then.
Yeah, but yeah, so it's just going to be a really cool experience, and we have a great group of people. We're nonprofit. We're a 501c3 now. We did that last summer, and we just got out of a board dinner. I apologize. I'm in my car, by the way. I just got too much to do right now. And
You're
That's okay.
good.
but yeah, we got a great group of people. We were able to raise a lot of money. This is a charity function as well. We're raising money for pediatric cancer. We have already raised $33,000 for the Pediatric
Uh-huh.
Cancer Research Foundation through our little 47 challenge that these teams are doing, because 47 kids get diagnosed a day with pediatric cancer, and we're already going to have we already know we have proceeds to donate to Shoot Out for Soldiers and Save a Warrior, our two veterans. So no one makes a dollar on this. It's a charity. We're growing the game, and it's a charity event. So if you we take it, put it this way: We have about 6,000 tickets sold today. It's a 56,000 seat stadium. So we got lots of space for more people. So
There you go. I love it.
285lacrosse.com for tickets. So
Great. Hey, listen, I'm gonna say one more thing. I've worked a camp, local camp with Grant, and he was awesome. He was very sociable, great with the kids. And I got to see him last year after they finished their game with Army, and said hi to me, and you've done a great job. I don't know Harrison, but I'm sure Sam. I know he's in the military,
there's the Marine.
and so so I know you've done a great job. I know lacrosse was a huge part of that, and kudos to you and your wife for teaching your boys how to be great people, great men, and great representatives of the game, and then just being great men. So good job with that, and thank you.
Well, thank you. I only taught him lacrosse. My wife taught him everything else.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, my
It's a
wife's the same.
balance.
She'll be there Saturday, so she'll be leading our host team and greeting people and stuff. So she's my wife, the saint. So
Good deal, man. Appreciate. Thank you very much for
guys.
joining us.
Thank you.
Thank
It's
you,
kind of
Jason.
fun. Thanks a lot. See you
All right.
Saturday.
All right. Take care.
Have a great day.
Bye.